welcome back to Sutton. We're here once again to talk to you about how Sutton is going to reopen. Very excited that it's only 4 days away, or maybe it's 5, but it's Monday, is D-Day, when hopefully many shops will be reopening. Hopefully many people will be brave enough and confident enough to come back into Sutton and start to boost the economy once more. But ahead of that date, there's an awful lot of work that an awful lot of people have been doing to try and ensure that that experience is good for both the businesses and the people who are shopping. So we're really pleased to be able to come to you just ahead of that opening date this afternoon, with a really stellar lineup of people, very much the people on the front line working for you from the local authority. And today, I think it's really important and really worth noting that we do have really everybody from a local authority perspective that's had something, has a role to play in this. And I think that's about sending out a really strong message that the London Borough of Sutton is absolutely stood beside you all in trying to make this whole experience as pain-free as possible. It might be painful, but hopefully they'll be stood next to you in that pain, trying to bring it forward. And I'm really delighted that we're able to bring these people to you today. So what's really important about the next hour is that you do use this as an opportunity to talk to them, to interact with them. It's part of the reason they want to come on and do this is because they want to give you the opportunity to talk to them. So please, if you are watching today, please do use the functions that we have with us on this webinar, just to remind you of what they are. You can chat to us this afternoon by using the chat button, and in that way you can just comment maybe on something that someone said, or share some knowledge or information that you might want to bring to this webinar. There's also the Q&A function, and that's where you can type your question to a panelist or the group, and I can bring that question to the group on your behalf. If you do want to talk to us in real life, you can also do that, because you can wave at me virtually using your little button next to your name, and that will tell me that you're waving, and that will mean that at the appropriate time I could ask you into the conversation if it's appropriate. Now, just before we start, just to get you all into the mood of engaging with us, we are going to launch our weekly poll. Many of you will have watched in the past, and you know that we're checking confidence levels, how people are feeling about how confident they are that their business is going to survive. And I guess where we're at right now is we're sort of another sort of crossroads, really, because with Monday ahead of us, we're sort of going a little bit into the unknown. And as much as all the work that the people here this afternoon and you watching have all done, I'm sure, to try and make your businesses as foolproof as possible, we are entering the unknown. None of us actually know what's going to happen in terms of how we're going to cope. So it'd be really interesting to get you to tell us how you're feeling today. So please take a few moments to fill in that questionnaire that's just popped up on your screen. Whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to run round our speakers and just remind you who we've got here. In a few seconds, I'll come over to Patricia, who is the manager of the bid in Sutton Town Centre. Also with us today is Amanda Cherrington. Amanda's head of economic renewal and regeneration, and she will also be telling you about the overall response that the local authority is making. We have Heather Evans with us. Heather is the economic regeneration officer, and Heather's role very much in the last few weeks and moving forward has been to engage with businesses, to really stand next to them, help them, and that's an ongoing role, and she'll be able to tell us about how that's going to work moving forward. We have Nick Cloak with us. Nick is the lead officer for licensing, and I'm sure many of you will have questions about what you can and can't do, and is there going to be somebody from his team that's going to come down on you and tell you you can't do something. So he'll be able to give you the lowdown on that. We have Chris Smith from Highways. Many of you will have probably noticed roads changing, pavements changing, and general disruption as you try and get in and around the borough. And Chris will be able to share exactly why that's happening and what's planned, what to look out for in terms of changes that are having to be put in place to make Sutton more accessible during COVID-19. And then Imran Chowdhury is with us. Now, I'm really pleased Imran's here. Imran is the Director of Public Health for Sutton, and probably never before has Imran had quite so much to deal with, having to deal with this ongoing pandemic. But I think importantly, this afternoon, what he can really bring to this conversation is the fact that Sutton are totally committed to ensuring that the safety of residents and businesses is at the fore. And Imran can give us hopefully some confidence about how that's going to be handled as we continue with COVID-19 being here amongst us, and what we ought to be doing to try and mitigate that. So I'm really pleased to have Imran with us. And I think I momentarily had Katie Woods with me from the Met Police. I think she's dipped out, so we'll see where she's gone, and we'll try and bring her back in. But we've got a lot of people here to talk to. So I want to just kick off first of all by going to Patricia. Patricia, this is it. We're heading towards the day that you and the team have been working hard for. Just tell us your sort of overview of where you're at this moment.
Yep, thank you, Catherine. So hello, everyone. I think we are, like you say, we're reaching that first hurdle, which is starting to reopen, obviously, the non-essential businesses that have been closed for some time now. So I think everyone's very excited about that, but also very cautious. So as a bid, we've obviously been working throughout the lockdown, and will continue to work onwards, just providing as much information for them as possible. There's a raft of it out there. So what we tried to do is produce as much guidance as we can. So that's all available on our website. And then we've been working alongside Heather and obviously Mandy at the council to try and decide what are going to be the priority areas that we need to get in place before the businesses open on Monday. Largely that has been around things like queue management and footfall management for them, to ensure that obviously when people come back to the town centre, that can be done safely. Looking at communicating messages outwardly. We operate as a bid the Enjoy Sutton platform throughout social media, which is our resident focused side, which promotes things going on in the town centre and so on. Throughout the lockdown, that's actually increased in presence because a lot more people have been online. So we've got a really good reach of audience now with that. So we're going to use those platforms to communicate outwards with changes that some of these businesses have adopted. I think for us, the key thing is that we know, particularly for some of the cafes and a lot of the businesses, that their clientele, the customers that they're used to, aren't necessarily going to be the ones they're going to be getting now. And also for those customers as well, understanding that when you go back to your cafe or when you go to a cafe space, you're not going to be sitting in there. It's going to be operated differently. It's going to have restricted times. It's going to have restricted spaces. So we need to make sure that everyone's expectations are met, and that avoids any challenges when people do come back. So we're also providing all of the businesses with a set of posters which they can display, which include things like offering understanding of their peak times. Peak times are really important. We've noticed throughout lockdown that many businesses are operating throughout the course of the lockdown. They have excessive amounts of queues at the moment, and that's largely because their hours have been restricted, but also there are days in the week where they're going to be busier over others, and we think by communicating that information out to the public, they're going to be able to understand when not to come, so thus we can reduce those queues for them as well. So there's a lot going on. We're physically working this weekend with the team and along with Heather to install some stencils on the high street, which actually show queue paths for businesses as well, which obviously keep to within a social distance. The government's planning on changing that social distance. Everything is very temporary at the moment, so we're working along with that. So everything we're installing can be changed and adapted as the guidance actually changes, to keep the public informed. So yeah, a lot going on at the moment, to be honest with you, an awful lot. You're on mute. You're still on mute. There you are. Hello again.
Hello again. I think that whole message about a constantly changing landscape is the thing that is hard to grapple with, because actually none of us know, as I've said, exactly what's going to happen. So just coming over to Amanda, I guess also just to pick up on the fact that I'm aware that the Sutton's discretionary grant fund has been released today. So maybe just for the benefit of those watching, maybe you could give us an overview of that situation, because there is some more money out there for some businesses.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes. Hello to all businesses. Delighted you're with us today. Yes, there has been another tranche of funding from the government. It's called the discretionary grant funding, and you will find it on our website. And I think Catherine and Patricia are going to circulate the details to the attendees today, and it will be on the BID website, the council's website, and through all our business networks. So this discretionary grant funding is primarily aimed at businesses who've incurred property or building costs, but as yet have not been in receipt of any of the business rate relief schemes that have already been offered by business. It is aimed at small businesses, micro businesses, SMEs. The eligibility criteria is clearly set out in all the communications we're going to send to you. There's definitions of small and micro. And really what we're going to be asked to do is demonstrate the loss of income, the impact, negative impact clearly, of COVID-19 on your business since the outbreak. Sole traders are eligible to apply, but you cannot be in receipt of other business rate relief schemes, but that's pretty self-explanatory. It is targeted at those who've as yet not received support. In terms of how you demonstrate that you have been significantly impacted by COVID-19, there's a whole raft of information on all the information we're sending out. It's all sorts of documentation that you may have to hand or able to access to demonstrate that, okay, and it may be a combination of them. I think it's worth noting that we are aiming to use this grant funding to help as many businesses as possible. So we're probably giving a guide that the average award will be in the region of £5,000. We can make bigger awards, but we are keen to help as many as possible. So we will be looking to make a number of smaller awards as opposed to a large one, because that is the target audience for us. And I think that's probably it in a nutshell. We've got a lot of examples. It's people, businesses who have shared workspace who actually aren't directly responsible for the rates. It's small holdings, nurseries. That's nurseries for children, not for plants, but it might be for plants as well. Charity properties. Yeah, there's a number that fall into this category. We don't really. Sorry, Catherine.
I was going to ask whether this is a bit of a race in terms of, there's only a set amount of money. So how are you? Is it the first come first serve to the door, or how is that going to work?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. We have made a decision not to make it first come first served, because we do know the pressure businesses are under, and I do know myself, for all the paperwork everybody has to do, that it takes a while to gather this stuff together. So what we're saying is we did actually open on Tuesday just gone. We are open to claims for the next 2 weeks, then the doors will shut. Then we will assess all of our applicants in the round. So it isn't first come, first served. I'm saying that we may well be inundated. We are talking to other boroughs, obviously, and across London to sort of check our own schemes' resilience in comparison with others. And it is quite different. Some have had a big demand and some have had very little. So it's quite a difficult fund to predict. But obviously it depends on the demand as to how many awards we can give.
Okay, that's great. I guess the message to everybody watching either now or later via YouTube is, if you haven't received any money, this may be your opportunity.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
And I have put the link in the chat, which I think is the right link, which will take you to the page that you can then get more information. And if you have a question that you want to ask the panel today, we might not have the answer, but certainly ask it, and then we can take it away. And I'm sure someone here can get back to you with the specifics around that. So thanks for that. I think, Mandy, just staying with you then for the wider picture of what's going to happen on Monday, and you do have this great team of people who are here today. So just talk us through the borough's approach, the local authorities' approach to the reopening on Monday.
Okay, so I just want to re-emphasise to our businesses that the reopening is massively important to us for our local economy, all the aspects of our local economy, kick-starting our businesses. So we have had a long, hard think about this throughout the council as to how we can support you best. So what we are bringing in, as Patricia has alluded to, we're marking up the queuing areas outside of our big stores, where you do actually see currently queuing, and we're putting in designated areas so that you can help manage your queues. We're marking out the space for you. Patricia's provided stop signs, start signs, come back later signs. We also are providing help and support to our businesses. As we have also mentioned, there is a notice that businesses are encouraged to display the COVID-19 compliance notice. And although that sounds incredibly sophisticated, it's a very basic checklist that all businesses are encouraged to fill, consider, to look at when they're checking as to whether they're safe to open and receive customers. And I think our big message is just really let's all work together to be safe. And the COVID-19 notice helps you do that. So once you fill that in, we're going to encourage you to show it on your premises, somewhere where it's visible, so you can give comfort to your customers and reassurance. And we'll be in the high street, a big physical presence on Monday. We're going to the district centres as well. My team are out in high-vis jackets, talking to our businesses, helping you where we can, talking to our shoppers, helping them, queue safely, helping them with as much advice and support as we can give. So we're taking this very seriously as a council and really keen to make this work safely.
That's great, and I think the fact that you will have that very high presence of officers out there is a positive thing, because there will be a lot of questions, I'm sure, being asked, and potentially a lot of issues to resolve. And I think I haven't heard of, and I know you are actually physically marking out queuing areas, aren't you, on behalf of businesses, which I know other boroughs aren't doing. They're very much leaving it down to the businesses to sort themselves out. But I think I'm right in saying, is that across the borough, or is that just in the town centre?
Primarily the town centre. We have reviewed district centres to see what's actually happening. Interestingly, in the district centres, many of the essential businesses are already open, as you know. There are very few that probably would be included in the next tranche on Monday, but it will affect the high street. We have already checked the areas that already are seeing high numbers of residents and shoppers queuing, so we've paid specific attention to them.
Yeah.
Yes, but we are visiting the district centres as well, and we will be encouraging them to display the COVID-19 notices, because it has been stated that it's a requirement for trading. So we're encouraging everybody to get those notices displayed.
Yeah. And I think, as already been said, it is going to be about collaboration, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, you can't just open in isolation. You have to have spoken to your neighbours. You have to know what they're doing. It might be that you need to rethink your opening hours, because actually, why would you all open at the same time? Maybe you could stagger your opening hours to help with the queuing. But again, probably not going to know about the reality of that until we've gone through a few days, or even maybe a week of seeing what footfall, levels are like. So an ever-changing scenario. I want to bring Imran in because this sort of public health message, we hear it on a daily basis on a national level, and we're all sort of hanging on there every word. Just talk to us about it from a Sutton perspective.
Sure. So what I'd like to start by just saying thank you, actually. Thank you to all businesses out there for all the efforts you have already been part of the response to COVID in terms of the lockdown, and you've really helped drive the numbers of cases, the people who are falling ill, the people who are hospitalised, and the people who are dying. By your actions, you've directly affected that for the whole of the community. So, and then I'd like to say, just in terms of colleagues on the call as well, just to hear about all the work that's going on here in Sutton, I think that's fantastic in terms of getting the high street back and ready again in a safe way for everybody. I think it's brilliant. I think I just want to say, so from a public health perspective, clearly COVID hasn't gone away. So if we think about London as a whole, back at the peak a couple of months ago, we were probably at 150,000 infections a day. That's probably down to 1,000. So a huge drop, but it's still there. It's going to take some more time and effort. So while it's great for all of our kind of mental well-being and our happiness that things are opening up in a controlled and phased way, really important that we all just maintain that care and attention, and the social distancing, the hand washing, which we've all been doing, is absolutely the heart of all of that. And then I think I just want to make sure that businesses out there really get the message as well that so, you know, we as public health teams are working with lots of other different teams across the council, thinking about high risk settings. We are tracking the data. We are trying to do our best to make sure that we contain any little clusters of outbreaks of COVID in the community as and when they reappear. And that's actually the best way to keep the high street flourishing and going. And you guys can really help us do that, because you know there will be some cases of COVID. Let's be realistic. And the best way for us to work and tackle those together is to nip them in the bud early, and we can all play our part by making sure that if anyone has symptoms, particularly amongst your own staff, you know, do encourage them to get tested as quickly as possible. Allow them to self-isolate, and then comply with, you know, if anyone's been a contact of a positive case, the National NHS Test and Trace Service will be in touch and advise them to self-isolate for 14 days. That will be a bit of a bind. I absolutely appreciate that. But actually, if we were all doing that together, that is a way that we are going to keep Sutton open going forward. But also, actually, it's how we're going to keep and prevent kind of any more future large outbreaks. And I think that's good for business, but also really important and good for the community as well.
I think that's a really important message, because we know it hasn't gone away. It's still there. So how we can support you and your team and everyone else is really important. What should people do in terms of looking at these queues and these customers? I guess you know, there could well be instances of feeling that you're unsafe because you've got customers that aren't correctly isolating. Is there, you know, what is the rule on that? I suppose you dial. What do you do? Do you report it? Is there a rule on this?
So I think generally so far that, you know, we don't want to get to a kind of enforcement attitude on this. We are encouraging businesses to engage with customers, to encourage, you know, and the stuff that Mandy and colleagues have done in terms of the spacing and the distances. I think it's really positive. I think most public health advice is about nudging people forward, engaging with them. It's less about enforcing. And I think generally the public's been really good at doing that, and they're really used to doing that. And I'm hoping that, you know, that's the way going forward.
Yeah.
Clearly, if things get out of hand, then yes, please do be in touch, because actually we will be there to help and do what we can. But again, it's very much a kind of encouraging approach rather than trying to police this or enforce this. I suspect other colleagues on the call might want to come in on that as well.
Okay, that's great. I'm just going to invite. I've got a phone in, someone on their phone who I think is probably Kate from the Met. Is that the case, Kate Woods? Yes.
It is. Hi, sorry about that. Technical issues.
That's all right. Don't worry. I just wanted to check it was you in the corner. So welcome, Kate. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. I will come back to you in a few moments. Now I know that you're there. That's fantastic. I want to just bring Heather in, because Heather, I know you've been working on the sort of front lines, so to speak, with Patricia, talking to businesses over the last couple of weeks. And you'll be one of the people sort of leading really that business engagement team from Monday. So tell us a bit about that and how businesses can keep in touch with you and share their concerns.
Yeah, so we'll be visiting obviously the town centre and the district centres all next week. There'll be a presence around. So if businesses have any concerns, if it's to do with a poster, if it's to do with their queuing systems, it's to do with any kind of advice, they can catch one of us and ask us. And obviously if it's not to do with you know, the economic regeneration team, that we can pass that on to, you know, highways planning, licensing. So we will be out, we will be, you know, providing as much help and advice as possible to support businesses and also the residents that, you know, might be a little bit reluctant to be out, just to reassure them that, you know, we're looking, we're helping. Yeah, so we'll be around. You know, it's a positive thing. And we're going to do as much as we can to support the businesses for a smooth reopening.
Great. And if you could pop contact details in the chat so that people know the best way to get through to you and the team, that would be great.
Yeah.
Coming over to Chris, people who have noticed across the town centre and beyond, probably an increased amount of roadworks. And I know from a Met Police point of view, Kate's keen to know about any road closures or anything else that may well be impacting on police response. What is the latest in terms of how you're ensuring that Sutton is accessible?
Essentially what we're trying to do, we're trying not to close any roads. We're trying to keep access open to all areas, particularly the town centre, as much as possible. There might be some road space re-specified to other users, i.e. around the town centre. There will be the cones that have been out for about a fortnight now. That's being moved over to the majority of the space to cyclists, as we'd had some feedback from Andy Mays from the Met Police about safety for pedestrians using that area, so we've moved it over to cyclists because it's much easier to provide safety in those areas for the cyclists and just move pedestrians away from the edge of the cones. So access will, like I say, there won't be any roads closed at the moment. There might be a little bit of what we term filtered permeability on access routes into the town centre, which will restrict vehicular movement, but it will enable walking and cyclists to continue along those areas so that people can socially distance within the entire road space and use the road for themselves on narrow footpath areas, that sort of thing. That's part of what we term medium-term measures, which we're receiving funding from TfL from to encourage access into the town centres from what's termed active travel means, either walking, cycling and public transport. Obviously public transport capacity will be down by about 80%. So the encouragement is to be for walking and cycling to be used so that there's not gridlock for everybody using their cars.
Okay, are you able to, is there any changes to pavements or bus stops? Often that's the thing that people notice most. What's happening about that?
Bus stops are predominantly being managed by TfL. They have a tool which they've used to identify hotspots across the whole of the London area. Sutton don't appear to have any hotspots at this time, but we're working with senior partners within TfL buses to indicate areas where we think might become hotspots. That's areas that tend to be where there's a large number of bus routes servicing that one bus stop. We've considered what are termed bus borders, which are additional footway areas around bus stops if we feel that there's going to be a lot of queuing passengers. TfL will be putting social distancing guidance around their shelters and their bus stop posts to inform members of the public how to use the bus stops and the buses themselves to protect their drivers and staff. So
there's no closures of any bus stops as far as you're aware?
No. There might be some relocations where we look to where some stops might have, a stop can have up to 9 different routes servicing it at any one time. Yeah. What we're trying to do is limit routes to per bus stop to 3, depending upon the frequency of those services. And if that's the case, we're working with TfL as to how we can reposition bus stops so that users can continue to interchange at these stops, but be able to socially distance at the same time as well.
Okay, that's good to know. So Sutton is very much staying open then from a road and transport perspective. A question, absolutely. I don't know whether you can pick this up or anyone else, but I know people will be thinking about car parking. I know that we want to encourage people to cycle and walk, but in reality, there's still going to be people that for various reasons will need to use their car. What is the situation, firstly, with parking enforcement? I know some boroughs have reinstated the sort of parking bay system, and in fact, car parks in general across the borough. Is that for you, Chris, or is there?
I understand that on-street parking enforcement was within Sutton was suspended for 3 months from the start of the lockdown. I understand that will continue. There was a certain amount of free parking within our multi-storey car parks, but I think that has now payment has resumed within those. Obviously, all of our car parks will be opened up so that people that commute or shoppers, etc., can come in and access the car parks and use them to access the town centre. We're maintaining as many disabled parking bays as possible. I think two have been closed off because it was because the cycle lanes and temporary traffic management around the town centre was interacting with those, and we couldn't keep both open. But that's just two of quite a large stock around the entire town centre. So we're looking to enable all users to be able to use their car if required to access the town centre.
Okay, so there shouldn't be. There's no reason why anyone shouldn't come in their car. I know we.
No, absolutely.
There is going to be parking and such there. Okay.
Right.
Let me come over to Kate, who's on the phone. Because conscious, Kate, that you've probably got lots to be doing. But I think what's really important is just to hear from a Met perspective on how you're sort of approaching from Monday the impact of the reopening of the shops. What's the sort of advice that you can give to the businesses watching?
Hi, yeah, no, I've literally just been thrown this on my way to find out the impact it's going to have literally on the response vehicles and how we would, if it restricts any of our response to anything. But by the sounds of things, the fact that roads are staying open, that's great. You'll see as much of a presence as is possible in the high street, and to be there to assist you where you need be. But obviously, with everything that else is going on, there are a lot of abstractions at the minute.
What's the advice? And maybe Patricia might be able to answer it. But if you're a business and you have opened and there is some unpleasantness, let's say, coming from the direction of maybe the queues or who actually should a business be ringing? What's their first port of call? Come to you, Patricia, from a bid perspective.
Well, there's two things there. There's obviously for those that are in the town centre that are part of the radio scheme, obviously we have Rupert and Callum, who are our bid support officers. So they're there to support with any kind of low-level business crime, essentially, but also to provide supports to businesses around the queues and around any kind of confrontations and so on. We don't anticipate much of that, I've got to be honest, because I think the more you communicate out and you're telling people the information, the less chance there is that is going to happen. But I also think that both of those guys have been working closely with some of the policing teams as well. And there are, while we're continuing to push forward and we're focused very much on the COVID recovery, there still is, essentially groups of individuals that do tend to come in and cause problems, but we know who they are. So I think that obviously we're able to identify and kind of follow, as Rupert has been doing and Callum has been doing, and I know that the police do as well, to ensure that they kind of know we're aware of them. Yeah. And we kind of essentially walk them off of the high street, shall we say, so they don't necessarily come back. But I think that there is that support available through Rupert and the team there. I think the neighbourhoods team have certainly had a visible presence on the high street, and like Casey said, at the moment there is a lot of other stuff going on. We all know there's an awful lot of other stuff going on, but I think for the most part the police have been more visible over the course of the last sort of 6 to 8 months anyway, in the town centre. So that I think that's given the businesses a lot of reassurance. Certainly this morning I received some information that I'm going to be sending out via email, which is obviously just from the Chief Inspector's perspective, and passing that back to businesses as well, just to show them that they are obviously aware that everything's happening on Monday, that they are conscious that obviously there is some stuff that the businesses need to do themselves to ensure that they're managing their own premises, but that the high street in itself will be patrolled as and wherever they possibly can. So I think we're all very excited about moving forward, but it is important to remember there is that other element, there is that other stuff going on as well as this. Yeah. And so our support certainly hasn't gone anywhere throughout, and I know the police is still very conscious of it.
Kate, I'm really grateful to you for dialing in. Is there anything else that you want to add that could be of help this afternoon?
No, that's it from me. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Katie. I'm going to come over to Nick. Nick, you're in charge of licensing in the town centre. So there's lots of businesses that are going to be wondering whether they are doing what they should be doing and do they have the right licence. So talk to us about the update from licensing.
Yeah, afternoon all. In general, what we're going to see Monday is obviously a reopening of the retail side of things. that leaves two key areas that are yet to get permission to reopen from the government, and that remains the same. So those two key areas are your service industries, they are your hair salons, your beauty salons, etc. For the time being, unfortunately, those type of premises must remain closed. The retail element will be able to trade, but the actual part that offers that service won't be able to. The second major change you will see around the town centre is in relation to pavement cafes, the tables and chairs you see historically on the high street and are a pull into the town centre. For the time being, again, those areas are to remain closed until such time as suitable social distancing can be agreed by government and by those medical experts. So for the time being, those areas will also remain closed, and you won't see them on the high street. The cafes will be open. They will be able to offer a takeout service, but they won't be able to offer any tables and chairs for seating for individuals to consume there. Otherwise, from a general point of view, from us in terms of licensing, we've seen alcohol sales and other licensed premises open all the way through as part of the essential services. And so what I would say to all businesses is that those of us that have been shopping, that have needed to do that in our own time, have seen that practice, have seen what works successfully and what doesn't. With all the information that is available out there at the moment, and with that experience you have yourself, use that to help develop your own plans. But as everyone else has said so far, please communicate with us. That there's an awful lot of information available out there. There's going to be an awful lot of people on the ground on Monday to help you. And what we want to do as a service from an enforcement point of view is help you. We don't want to enforce upon you. What we want to do is liaise with you, talk with you, get you moving in the right direction, and us help you to help yourselves, basically.
Sorry, I realised you couldn't hear me. So I was just saying that, you know, clearly there are no changes officially to the licensing rules. So everything as is, it would be. It's not that you could suddenly sort of do something differently. But equally, what you're saying is that, you know, you are there to be a support. So whilst you do have to try and make sure people are adhering to the rules, equally you'll try and work with the businesses.
Yeah, and that puts it into a nutshell. What we're trying to do is work with businesses. So if a business has a question, a query, a concern, everyone on this call is available and is there to offer that advice. And the same with us in terms of our details. If you are a licensed premises and you have a concern, or you're an existing food business, or indeed any retail business and you have a concern, and you can't find that information on any of the websites, be them Opportunity Sutton, Successful Sutton, the council's own website, please do contact us. It's brs@sutton.gov.uk, and we'll be able to answer that query. If we can't, and we're not the best people to do so, we will forward that to the team that can.
Sorry, was that BRS?
BRS, yes, brs@sutton.gov.uk. Linked from our website, linked through the council's call centre, but you can just email that directly if you can't find that advice on the specific websites. But what I would say, and what I've said from the start, is there's an awful lot of specific information out there for the town centre, for the district centres, that's been put together already.
Yeah.
That's probably your best port of call. But if you've got a particular question for your business, please do speak to us. If we can help, we will.
Great. And certainly on the BIDS website, I know Patricia's done a great job of keeping everybody up to date. Patricia, I wanted to come to you and ask you whether you have, what is the situation with the two shopping centres? Because you have two shopping centres, presumably there's some systems and controls. How is that going to work?
Well, both shopping centres are planning to open on Monday. Many of the businesses inside have obviously been working very hard recently to maintain and manage the social distance and the COVID guidelines inside. The shopping centre, St Nicholas, for example, they've changed their access points. So the south access, which is opposite where Marks and Spencer's is, you can actually enter and exit via that route. It would appear from inside that what they've also done is they've adopted some route plans inside which show you which way you can walk around to keep a social distance. So they too will also be open on Monday as well. So for the most part, it looked, as we were doing walk round and over the several kind of walk rounds that we've done now, that I would say majority, aside from those businesses that obviously cannot open yet, will be open on Monday, which is a good thing. I think, you know, what the last thing you want to do is lose places, and particularly some of the bigger names will be open on Monday as well, which really shows that, you know, we want to get everything up and running again. And the 2 shopping centres are very much involved in that.
Okay. And presumably you'll be queuing to get into the shopping centre, potentially, and then potentially queuing to get inside a shop within the shopping centre. I guess that's how it would work. Is that, do we know?
Well, we don't know. And that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, realistically, the capacity of the shopping centre is over and above some of the smaller stores on the high street. So the main concerns we had were around banks, around some of the, particularly the post office and the supermarkets that see the high level of footfall and have seen the high level of footfall over the period of time that everything has been in lockdown. Partly responsible for that was the fact that a lot of these places operated on restricted hours. So as they were doing so, people were obviously rushing in clusters to get in and get their stuff done in a very short window. Now those restrictions are now lifted. A lot of places are going back to original hours and actually operating at extended hours. The queues have completely gone down, particularly for places like Morrison's, which was huge amounts of queues, has now reduced to very small queues. That won't always be the case. Obviously, there's peak times. Particularly in the shopping centres, it's very difficult to understand what that footfall is going to look like, because they're 2 very different spaces as it is. St Nicholas particularly have some of the very, you know, bricks and mortar stores in there. One is actually called bricks and mortar, but obviously you also have Primark as well, which hasn't had an online presence at all. So I can imagine that's going to be quite a popular spot for people to wanting to go back to.
Primark actually said they are going to open, because I know in some town centres they've said that they're not going to open on Monday.
This is the thing. As far as we're aware, majority of the places inside the centre will be open on Monday. I have not had anything to say otherwise, but again, Mandy will probably have a bit more of an update there.
Mandy, you've got an update there?
I was just going to say, I know Debenhams isn't till Wednesday, but they are opening.
And the good news is you still have a Debenhams.
We do.
Indeed, there's still. We were talking to the group that manage St Nick's Centre yesterday, and yes, it's quite amazing because Debenhams are closing their stores as we know they've struggled for some months, years even, and they're continuing to work hard to keep Sutton open. So they're definitely opening on Wednesday. Yeah,
that's great. Heather, did you want to come in here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've spoken to the St Nicholas Centre director, and I think they're trying to combine their queues with the inside the south doors. So obviously on Monday, how busy Primark is, because that will lead straight from that top floor there. Yeah. But obviously we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, most definitely. In the last sort of 50 minutes that we've got, I just want to encourage those of you that are watching to ask some questions. If you've got a specific question in mind, or just use the chat button to comment. If you want to make a comment on anything that anybody has said, this is your opportunity to do that. So I'd like to encourage you to do that. But I just wanted to move us on a bit, really, beyond Monday, and just think a bit more long term about the future of the high street, and indeed sort of generally the economy of the borough, because it's going to be an important part of a small business or any size business to understand exactly, I guess, the confidence that the local authority has got around the future of the Sutton economy. So just coming back to you, Amanda, very much your remit here, but let's talk a bit about beyond Monday and hopefully into the coming months as we start to really come out of here. What's the picture looking like for Sutton?
I think it's incredibly important we do look forward, Catherine. I think that is really an excellent point. It is hard to do that given there are so many restrictions, and I think the nervousness and the anxiety in everyone going forwards, even just coming out and living a normal life again, seems a big leap, doesn't it? But I think that said, the council has got, my team are working really hard to plan for the future. So our major developments, the London Cancer Hub on the Belmont site, that's still progressing. We've continued to work hard at that. We're looking at rephrasing that development in the light of the economic climate, and we're looking to bring forward an innovation hub or a small hub for startup life science startups and enterprise units, small ones, in collaboration with the Institute of Cancer Research and the Royal Marsden Hospital. So that piece of work is up and running. We've just completed a huge bid for the Future High Street Fund, which is a national fund. We received an award on the first round to work up the business case, and we've put a number of redevelopments in that mix for that bid. It's probably too soon to share all of those schemes with our businesses as yet, but no prizes for guessing they're all in the high street. So, you know, we've very much got our eye on how we get from out of this as made to be. There's a lot of schemes we're working up going forwards, localised schemes and broader schemes, and we continue to bid for national funding to get it into our borough. But I do think this is all of us pulling together, and I do know there are a lot of businesses who found this last few years hard trading climate anyway. It's not an easy time to trade. Don't give up now. Don't give in. Keep going. You know, there's lots of optimism. There's lots we can do together. But just push through this next phase safely, and let's look at the future together.
Okay, that's a really strong message. Can I also touch upon sort of jobs and skills? Because many businesses will be sadly losing staff, and they'll be looking to sort of retrain and upskill. And you know, what's the borough's response to that?
It's absolutely right. I think realistically we probably will be looking at a significant increase in unemployment in the short term. Again, it will be looking at the longer term. There are a number of schemes we're reviewing as to how we upskill, reskill, retrain, and of course that's got to be around emerging jobs and employment sectors. So we're doing a huge piece of work behind the scenes on this, and I'd probably, if there is an opportunity, maybe to talk to businesses further along the line about how we work together on that. If they're identifying opportunities for growth, that we can focus on those as we go forward.
You're on mute again.
I have to so everyone watching, if you can't already tell, I've got hay fever. So I'm muting myself to enable myself to blow my nose in silence. You definitely would want it to be in silence, and then keep forgetting to reopen my microphone. So apologies for that. Coming back to Patricia, I was just going to bring in the fact I know as a bid, one of the things you are looking at is this whole job vacancy and careers, and how can a bid actually help your businesses to look for the right staff, but also employers that have had to let staff go. I know you've got some thoughts on that. I'm not sure whether you can share that, but it might be an opportunity just to share some of that thinking.
Well, we do a little bit of work with that at the moment. So we obviously throughout the period and into now, we're getting messages from some of the businesses, particularly some of the independent retailers that are actually looking to hire staff at the moment. So we're sharing those through the Enjoy Sutton platform. And I'm keeping a bit of an eye on it because as it, you know, from Manny's perspective, as she said, there is going to be a lot of unemployment. There are a vast number of schemes in the borough to support people back into work in various degrees. So I think from our perspective, it would be about sharing the local job opportunities with people who don't particularly want to travel anymore up to London, who want to take a local job somewhere, and then giving the platform, if you like, for the businesses to be able to share those. And then just seeing how it goes. I think if there is a case to be looked at where the bid and maybe even the 3 bids come together to support businesses with employment in some way through some sort of online platform, I think that's a really good look to the future to be able to do that. But at first, I think let's start slowly and just see what we're sharing and see how the responses go to that, and then build it up from there. I think, you know, rushing, it's another one of these things we can rush in with all kinds of all singing, all dancing things, and actually this isn't going to meet the immediate needs. So the stuff we're doing at the moment is the priority, and then we'll start working through the different stuff that comes up reactively, and planning ahead, really.
Okay, just taking us back to a couple of operational things which businesses might be interested to know. I know we've talked a lot about the reopening of the high street in terms of the retail premises, but also just that you've got a number of big employers. Is there any insight as to, you know, when those big employers might be bringing back their businesses, their employees, because that would have an impact on the economy in terms of people spending money at lunchtime and all of that. Is there any insight into that?
I think at the moment, certainly the vast majority of it have been operating throughout lockdown in a different guise. So I mean, some of them obviously have taken the approach where a lot more people are working from home. Staff are coming back, but I think everyone is remodeling and looking and thinking, well, do we need these large premises? Do we need to be working in these spaces? Can we adopt this more flexible approach? For some, it works out brilliantly. For others, it really doesn't. They need to have that kind of presence. So I think you're going to see some difference in operations for a lot of people. Certainly, from our perspective, we operate the Midtown Hub, which is an SME space. And our guys have been quite comfortably working from home, but I know that that's becoming a little bit more challenging as time progresses, and they're keen to get back into a desk space and work away from the home environment. So as long as there's space available, people will take that. But I think from a larger employer's perspective, you will start seeing creeping back into the town centre more and more as time goes on. I just don't think it's going to be that huge rush of traffic that we're quite used to over a lunchtime period. It's going to be a kind of progressive, again, as with everything else, it's going to be a progressive, and let's just see how that looks moving forward.
Randy, bringing you in here in terms of so the council employ a lot of people.
I was thinking, there's two sides to this. So I've been in contact with a lot of our big employers, and yes, they are still working at home and will be for the next few months to come. I don't think to actually apply all the social distancing restrictions is very easy for employers. So whatever, it does limit capacity of buildings hugely. The council, of course, is probably one of the second biggest employers in the borough, as you know, and we will be facing the same challenges. So yes, staff will be returning to work, but we're going to be at very limited desk space, and we are being encouraged to work from home and have been working actually throughout the pandemic, and we've continued working. And actually what it has proved is we can work from home. We actually do have the IT, it's quite successfully managed. So I do think that will remain that way for a while. But ultimately, we have civic responsibilities, civic duties that do need to be conducted for the public, with the public, and I think we will, definitely be back in our building. And it may be we are looking, it's in our master plan for the town centre that we may look at relocating the civic offices or rethinking that space altogether, and that wouldn't be a loss from the town centre. It's unlikely to be. In fact, it would be the reverse. We'd be looking to bring in more of our partners with us, our NHS partners, our DWP partners, and again, that would just boost those numbers for our town centre activity, which is always a good thing. And I think it's interesting that our developer interest, it's still bubbling on, and you know that as well, if not better than I do, Catherine. Sites are still being sold, residential developments are still being planned. Again, that's from those numbers in. So it will be interesting to see what it makes after this. But I know we could do
that is a very positive message around the future, that there is still interest, and actually, as the town centre, you have capacity, and you have, you do have some sites and schemes which are still waiting and are available for development, which is not the case everywhere. There's certainly going to be some challenges ahead for all businesses, there's no doubt about that. But I guess the message from Sutton is let's work together, let's start to rethink what the future might need to look like. I think just the final sort of go around the panel really for a few sort of final thoughts. Which your job is going to be ongoing, I'm sure, in terms of making those changes. The final sort of thoughts from you on what that might look like.
I just think we have to keep ourselves optimistic. We really do, and work towards restarting our local economy, and that will be together.
Great, thanks.
Absolutely. Transport-wise, we're looking to just facilitate as much access as possible into the town centres around the borough. That's what we are here to do. Obviously, we can't release more space for cars because it is a constrained area. So we are hoping to encourage members of the public to use walking and cycling where possible. We're working with stakeholders to try and change the measures that we put out to make sure they are continuing to work. And as a certain amount of normality comes back to public transport, there's there's likelihood that what we have put out will be scaled back in various step backs throughout the next 6 to 12 months, however long this return to normality takes. But we are here to help the public travel as best we can, so anything we can do to help, please contact their local councillors or local transport groups to get in contact with me and my team.
Right, lovely, thank you for that. So Nick, coming to you, I guess in the coming weeks it's going to get slightly different for you, because at some point there will be an end to lockdown for leisure and hospitality, and I guess that's where your role ramps up a bit in terms of what that means.
Yeah, there's no doubt in the coming months. I mean, there's already some indication that hospitality across the board, be it a small independent cafe all the way up to the larger hotel groups in the borough, will be slowly but surely reopening, and the government have kind of indicated around early July for that, and I think plans already being discussed at a local level with our partners in the police and the partners you see around the room today, just to kind of look at that and how that's going to impact on the work from Monday moving forwards. So yeah, hopefully in the short to medium term we're seeing a return to some form of a new normality in the town centre with some of those hospitality.
That's great. Well, thanks to you and your team for all that you're doing. Heather, coming over to you then, last few words. If you're a business, come and talk to you, I presume. Oh, hang on.
Yeah, just to wish all the businesses that are opening from Monday the best of luck, and obviously if you need any help or support, keep your eye out for us. We'll be on the high street in the town centres, district centres.
Good. Imran, definitely need a final word from you. We're all going to be safe, healthy.
So I just like to say I think I'm really optimistic as well, and I think it's going to have a fantastic benefit to people's mental well-being, getting the high streets open again. I think that's going to be positive for all residents in the borough. Thanks very much for all you're doing, colleagues here and businesses. I'm really confident we're going to do that in a safe way and work together on that. So I'm really optimistic. Great, thank you. Mandy, last few words from you.
I think I've had a last few words.
Have the last word.
You've exhausted my repertoire there.
I guess it was just about that confident message from the local authority, and I think that has been demonstrated here today. I do a lot of these webinars in a lot of boroughs, and I've never had this many people from a local authority give up their time to talk to their businesses, and I think that says an awful lot for how dedicated Sutton is to their high street. There's no doubt there's going to be lots of changes ahead, but hopefully there's opportunity in those changes as opposed to negativity, and certainly a bright future, I think, in terms of the ongoing regeneration of Sutton. This is going to come to you because the fact that there are 3 bids in Sutton is a definite positive for businesses, and I guess there are times when businesses wonder why they pay that levy to have a business improvement district, but hopefully through this, what's come out of it is that people understand the role of a bid better, and why you're here and what you can offer. So a few final words from you this afternoon.
Well, yeah, I suppose I'm very excited about Monday. I think I'm very keen to see some of those faces again, to be honest. I think it's all going to work out really well. I just think, as everybody said, there are challenges. There's going to be an awful lot of challenges ahead, and certainly guidance is going to change. We are here, and I think we've kind of demonstrated that we are here to support as many businesses as we possibly can throughout that change, and obviously with the support of the council. I think we're covering majority of these bases. And the information about everything that we're talking about today, the information that we're providing as a bid around guidance with posters and so on, that's all available on our website, and it has been throughout the lockdown. So if any of the businesses that are listening today need anything at all, my email is always available. So please just drop me a line and we kind of jump on that. But yeah, see you all on Monday, I suppose.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Hopefully we've all got our purses open and ready to start spending money again, and also to start experiencing the great outdoors and the high streets in both in the town centre and across districts in Sutton. So just finally to say a huge thank you to all of you for giving up your time. I know you've got a very busy schedule between now and Monday and beyond, And what we know is that we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm sure that we will be coming back to do an update because this is an ongoing process. And what we know about COVID-19 is that no 2 days ever appear to be the same. So I'm sure that's going to be ongoing. But the main message from here this afternoon is that Sutton is reopening, and we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible returning to a safe place in Sutton from Monday. So thanks from here, and have a great rest of your day. See you all next week in Sutton. All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.